So, hello. Have a wonderful evening. Today we want to talk about these cards here. Just checking in for today, if everything is working here. Okay, so topic for today are cards from the company Fabula. Yeah, Fabula. Those are these cards. I will show them in detail in a moment. These cards and these cards. They are basically about story writing, and that is also the topic for today. So how to design a new story fresh. If you're just starting out, if you have a few ideas, like usually in the past I had like a box of ideas. Nowadays I have it in a digital format, a list of just various ideas, and usually I had trouble to really organize them. And with the cards from Fabula, that is a good tool simply to have yourself organized. I mean, everyone has their own tool of organizing, and usually after using it a few times, you will figure it out for yourself. But having those cards, and we will take a look at it in detail, and we will actually write a short story today. Having those cards, you will be at an advantage simply starting out, getting organized, having an idea how to sort your heroes, how to sort your story, how to sort your assets. So, as I'm already implicating here, today is about fiction stories. Usually I talk about both non-fiction stories in those workshops and fiction stories, but today really is the focus on fiction stories, although you could use some elements for non-fiction books, and I will also discuss them left and right here and then. Okay, for a start, let's look at the company's website. I have to switch here, and let's just look at their trailer. And again, this is Fabula, and it's a minute trailer, so I will just start it and we'll briefly watch it. I will also post the URL in the comments, and if you have any questions about it, let me know. It's a 2-minute trailer, and after that we dive in and really try to create our first own story using those cards. Okay, so 1 moment, and we will just start up here. It should work.
Do you have a great story but don't know how to build it? That's why we created Fabula. Fabula is an analog framework for fiction writers and screenwriters that helps you analyze, organize, and build your stories. It's a deck of 43 cards that you can place on tables, floors, walls, or any other available surfaces. The blue cards are assets. They give you the right questions. Who's the hero and the allies? The enemies? How's the space of the story? What's the concept? And the mood board? Just 12 cards to organize the main ingredients of your story. The orange cards are based on the hero's journey, a pattern that can be found in most of the stories. Some of the books about this topic are treated like Bibles. For example, Joseph Campbell's A Hero with 1,000 Faces and Chris Fogler's The Writer's Journey. It's an archetypical path that basically keeps your story evolving without becoming boring or redundant. If you think about it, you can find these 15 steps in most of the movies and books. In the ordinary world, the hero is still in his familiar environment and his life is going as usual. Then we have the call to action, and something happens to change the balance. Sometimes the hero could be scared to act, and just before or after the choice, he meets a mentor who guides him. Then we have the entering of the new world. We have trials, the meeting with the allies and enemies, then the hardest trial to get what he is looking for, and lastly, the conclusion, good or bad. And finally, you have complete control of your whole plot. You have your bulletproof structure. For more complex works, you can develop the stories of several characters, and if you need to mix the order of the events, you can handle it with the editing cards, a whole new set based on the 3-act structure. You can use Fabula to basically build every kind of story. From the simplest tale to the more complex movies, from the deepest kind of literature to the episodes of a TV series. It's a complete tool, perfectly scalable according to your needs, easy to use, and also great for teamwork.
Okay, so we're back. So a few things about those cards. So maybe there's a new version, but my version doesn't like fit directly on the wall. So I use a magnetic wall simply to put them on the wall. Right now I will show you the whole thing on a table. So we have those cards here. It's a little bit of small space, so usually you want to use a larger space. The best thing I used is a magnetic wall, and with those magnets just put on the cards. So that's just some words in advance. I'm not like sponsored by Fibula. I just think it's a great product. Even if you're not like using it actively like on a wall, simply by looking at those cards when you're starting out a new story, you can sort your own thoughts and maybe think about, okay, did I mark this box? Do I have that? I could arrange it somehow. So maybe just this video will help by just looking at those cards. Otherwise, if I'm not sure how much, I think 20 euros or $20. I'm not sure how much they cost, but I mean, those are very, very basic cards. So what do we have here? On the back side, there's nothing. On the front side, there are three types of assets. So we have the hero steps. That's basically who's acting and what are they doing. So that's basically the core story that you need. And you have assets, so that's like tools, the world, special abilities. There are who's the narrator, who are the allies of the heroes, who are the enemies, any magical objects in your fantasy story. Maybe if you have already some drawings also, you can put it there. So we'll go through the individual parts here, and also the so-called reader steps. That's more about an internal thing. So what is the so like a musical number? What is the development of the plot, and what is the setup? What is the climax? That's what we talked about last time. What is the solution? What comes at the end? So we will look through all those, and then for each of those, maybe find already a few elements for a sample story I have in mind. Of course, you can do it for your own story. And feel free to share anything like how you approach it, what tools you're using if you're just starting out. Okay, so as I said, usually when I start a new story, I have like a huge box, digital or in actuality, of ideas. And what I have struggled in the past is really to sort it out. Like I wrote a little part there, I wrote a little part there, and editing took forever. So what I then thought about is, okay, I need to organize my thoughts a little bit better. Okay, so how do these cards work? So basically, as shown here on the first one, let's put those away. On the first one here, I hope you can see this. There's basically a little instruction how you put it there, and that is the characters to the vertically down, and the hero steps, the development of the hero, the change of the hero on the to the right. So first one, you have the narrator. That's usually a huge one. You have to decide how do you want to actually tell your story. Is it like first person or third person, and who is that? I mean, there are a variety of techniques you can use. For example, it could be an inner monologue of the hero, or it could really be a separate narrator telling the story. Okay, what else do we have? Then we have a few hero cards. That's basically, okay, who are, or those are the lines basically here. How do they develop? What is the protagonist? How does the protagonist develop, and how maybe a second hero, a sidekick or so, how do they develop? And now on the horizontal, I will not, I mean, it's a limited space, so I will just put it one after the other. So here the hero steps, you might have heard, just like in the intro, the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell, and they put it like in 14 different steps, and those are basically helper steps for you to decide, okay, this part is the first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, etc. So usually in Joseph Campbell, you start out with an ordinary world. Like who's the hero? You explain like an ordinary day and what's going on, and maybe how relationship to his or family is, what they're doing for work. So an ordinary day you're going in, and then something happens. So something unusually happens, and you find that in most movies, or in many movies, this structure. It's a call to action. So something happens. Maybe the hero gets a special power, a special device. So something extraordinary happens, or maybe war breaks out, or they make a special discovery. So this is the second step usually. So of course, then we started out the hero in this normal life, in this ordinary world, and of course you now have a conflict between, okay, there is a serious new thing, a change, and the world before. So the hero hasn't internally changed yet, but the world has changed, and we have to show this difference between like the previous person and the changed world, and that is usually expressed in an emotion, and that is the anxiety of the call. So what does the hero fear? What happened to change his mind? So what keeps the hero back, or basically his or her reaction to this new thing. And then usually, for example, Star Wars uses this heavily. So just to going back, you see Luke Skywalker doing his job with the as a basically robot repairman, and then the call to action, that is the when he finds the droid with the message, and then he's confronted. It's a little bit in a different order. Then he gets a mentor's aid. So he receives or meets a mentor, meets a wise person. That's Yoda in one of those movies, and the other is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And here he receives some help, some training, or some advice. And then the hero has adapted to the new situation, and he starts out in his journey. Then the next one is through the threshold. So what does the hero lose? What is he hoping to gain? So this is basically another step where the hero is pushed through, like really to have a motivation. So it's not just, okay, that's a magical item or something like that, but the hero also has to be pushed forward. So for example, in maybe here, call to action, the hero finds something special, and then maybe here through the threshold something tragic happens to the hero. For example, in The Expanse. So there's this about a mysterious new biological element they're researching or finding, and through the threshold would be that there's some sort of loss or some sort of conflict that is going on, and at this point really the hero has to go out and really decide, okay, I'm doing something. And now he finds himself or herself on the other side, basically. So here, what does the hero find in the new world? So how he or she discovers either the magical abilities of the item, or a new world, or new powers, or a new type of conflict, or he or she travels somewhere. So that is a new world that you have to describe, and in this new world he or she acts then. And then he or she is confronted with trials. So that is basically a simplified version, like first really dealing with those conflicts and really going out there. And through those trials, through the advice of the mentor, here then a fulfillment. The hero is ready, and now basically there's a reflection. Okay, going back to the original version of him or herself. What has changed? So maybe a certain self-reflection, what he or she has lost, and what's coming now. And now the real challenge comes. That's a nightfall. So really looking forward. Then again, so what is the real challenge to deal with the problem? And then the central trial comes. Really, that's the final build-up. And you see here that's like with a musical number, as I said. It's a build-up. So there's conflict, there's resolution, there's build-up, and here really that is the central trial, and really that is the top climax basically, and then something. That trial is resolved. The hero then really It looks like, okay, the situation is resolved, but then something maybe even bigger comes. Then so one thing is resolved, and then something even bigger comes with the reflects a bit with the relapse. So it's not over yet. So there are additional consequences, and then we have like really a last trial. Like you have a certain element in the story where maybe someone comes back from the dead, or something unexpected happens, and then really you have the final thing, and then the question is, what happened then really to the person? Can he or she go back to the original world, or does he or she come out as a new person, like quitting job and going somewhere else, moving somewhere else, quitting a relationship, or moving on to become maybe a vice person themselves, and then being a mentor for someone else. And then a conclusion, really, okay, what has changed with the world? What is the new outlook? What comes next? And as an exercise, those I will just go quickly through them again. As an exercise, it was shown in the trailer as an exercise, really for storytelling. It would be great, really, to sit down and think about, okay, take your 3 or 5 favorite movies or books, and really think about, okay, how is that reflected in those books or in those movies, and really think about, okay, what is the ordinary world. Watch the first 5 minutes of various movies, and you will usually find something, okay, that is the ordinary situation of the movie. This is sometimes changed, like really having an action scene at the very beginning, but maybe that is the normal environment of the person, like really a conflict-laden person. Then what is the call to action? Like what really changes the situation, and what is the anxiety of the call? Like what holds the person back? Because if the person just then proceeds to solve the situation, then there's no real change in the person. So if you don't have that anxiety of the call, then you won't need a mentor's aid. You won't need the suspense of really making that decision, and you won't need the trials, and you wouldn't need the fulfillment, and you wouldn't need then at the end the resurrection or the change or the conclusion. So that would all fall to pieces if you don't have that. So in the end, it is really like an orchestral music where you have going up, going down, and that is also something. If you have your story, you have to be able to draw that suspense line. So what did we have? We have like the ordinary world. So it starts like somewhere in the middle, just a normal day, and a call to action. So you have a suspense here, and then you have the anxiety of the call. So you get struggles a little bit here, and mentor's aid, so that reduces the suspense a little bit, and then through the threshold, really going through with it. Having some trials, so it's building up the suspense, fulfillment, reaching the top, and then really, I switched it around. The new world, so what's happening in the new situation, the trials, the fulfillment, the nightfall, and then really, now comes the final trial, the central trial, that is resolved. Here the outcome, but then relapse. So it comes back. The enemy or the opponent gets revived or something like that. So it gets another bump, and another shot of excitement. But that is resolved as well, and then it is resolved, and the outcome is then maybe an outlook for another book, another movie. And then the whole thing ends. So that is the idea here of those story steps. And of course, this applies to the hero and maybe also to other people within the story. Then, of course, it gets more complex if it's not just a single person, but maybe a group of persons that develops relationships, and that it could also be part of. And maybe some of them are not there yet, and maybe some meet their wise person only later, and then you can fill a whole series of different people going through that hero's journey and coming out as a new person. Maybe as a side note, if you don't know Joseph Campbell, so basically what he did is examine a variety of stories and of people, and really from ancient times and modern times, really finding patterns that repeat, and those are basically the patterns of repetition. And of course, on the one side, you have here that suspense and building up suspense, of course, that is exciting and that keeps the reader reading. But it's also something, especially for those fiction stories, that reflects a little bit the story we all went through. That is like growing up, finding a mentor, having trials, facing our fears, and coming out as a hopefully better or wiser person. So that really connects to a very deep part of ourselves, and that's why this type of story or this type of storytelling is so popular. That doesn't mean that all stories have to follow this, but this type of story, of course, more people connect. So you have of course popular stories. It is of course a challenge to make it differently, and of course if you're a book writer, you're always aiming for a niche and finding something new, and maybe challenging this type of storytelling, maybe playing with the expectations of the reader, because the expectation might be that it follows this line, and this could also be a challenge as a writer. Of course, if you're really writing commercially, it is best to meet the expectations of the reader. So it is a little bit, I mean, I think few readers will recognize your attempt to change this type of structure and then say, okay, they don't go the usual road of the hero. But I mean, there are stories where at the end it is not like a wise man and the person comes out as a better person at the end, but maybe going really the way of the anti-hero and really coming out worse at the end and really describing not like someone getting better or wiser, but really going down. For example, in the Joker and in that movie, I mean, it's not like that he is really resolving his problems or getting better, but it describes really the road of someone really losing their mind. So and that is still an interesting story. So people don't recognize themselves here in that storyline, but it's still an exciting story. So it is one way of telling a story that is like proven or so, but really also think, okay, can I do something different? And for that, really, the key as a writer is to read, to watch movies, really think about, okay, what's the structure? And for that, really, a very good exercise is if you either take those cards or think about it yourself, and really the next time you watch a movie or when you read a book, really think about, okay, what did the author think about? What is the structure of the whole thing? What are the character arcs? How does it go through a series of movies or series of episodes? And that is a very good exercise, and for yourself to structure your own thoughts, because you will eventually arrive at something similar if you just do it for yourself, and you can say, okay, yeah, well, I'm a creative person, I write good stories, I don't need that stuff, but of course it saves you a lot of trial and error time, really, to find out what the reader expects, and many readers expect that type of a story. And really, as an exercise, find out movies where that follows that line, and also, like I said, with, for example, the Joker, find something where it doesn't follow that type of character arc. And maybe here, maybe the market for these hero stories, like hero origin stories, I mean, we have a lot of them, is oversaturated, and you say, okay, yes, this is the most popular one, and I probably get a few readers here. But maybe I'll do something else. It is more challenging really to market that because people really expect that, but maybe it is a challenge for your next book. Okay, so that is a run through the hero steps. But what about these two other ones here? So the assets here, okay, here you already see it's a little. Just put those away. And we will then see if we can. We will see about the time. First, let's go through the cards. So the assets here, and here already it says, okay, place the asset cards where you want. So it basically already says, okay, that's like a box of ideas. Basically, maybe this is the first step. If you have a lot of sticker cards, I really recommend those. You can just stick it on the wall. If you have a lot of sticker cards, you can organize them here by those here assets. So all your ideas about the narrator, who is that narrator? Is it a person? Is it maybe a storyteller that years later looks back and reflects on it? So you have a lot of options here. Then here you organize your ideas about the allies, who is maybe in contact with the hero, and who is what relationships do they have, what past stories do they have, especially of course if you run a series of books, that is interesting. And then what heroes of course are there? Is it a single hero? Is it the group? How is that group dynamic? What are your ideas there? What is the motivation? And here research what type of motivations there are. I mean, usually it's or it's often like, okay, something catastrophic happened to them and that defines their character. That's a little bit overused, so and it is more challenging to write, okay, really take a normal person and how they react, so, and how they develop. Then, of course, what are the enemies in the story? Why do they act that way? And it is not, and here, of course, be careful not to say, okay, well, they're evil and they do evil stuff and they had a bad childhood or something like that. Be a little bit more creative and really have a motivation for the enemy. Otherwise, they become basically a faceless person, and depends, of course, on your audience. If you really want to discuss like good versus evil, or if you really want to make the person think about their motivations. If it's a little bit more political, it becomes interesting because usually like political motivated people, they are often in a gray zone. For example, I recently watched The Expanse, and you have a lot of people with like differing motivations, and it's not like, okay, those are the evil people and those are the good ones, so it's a little bit more diverse, so it becomes more complicated, and as a writer it becomes more challenging here. So really think about, okay, we see. Then, of course, magical objects. It could be a single object that defines your entire story. So usually if it's magical, it's often like a what if story. Like, what if I had a cloak of invisibility? What if I had a time machine? What would happen in that world that I'm creating? What would happen there? So the magical objects really become like an anchor of your story. Then form. That's also, I mean, that's what I talked the last few times. That is really important. What style do you use? What are your readers' reading abilities, and really in what level are they reading? Do they want to read a lot about hard science? Do they want to read more personal stuff? Do they just focus on the exteriors? Do you write for children? So what is really the form? And that, of course, also applies for non-fiction books. And really think about here non-fiction books. And for non-fiction, you have less so the story development, like really with the suspense, etc. But still, I think few people attempt it. I mean, they sometimes add a story to it and build a suspense, but it is more challenging, of course, to add this really to non-fiction stories where they really explain stuff. I know a few. Again, it's less common in non-fiction. I mean, what comes to mind is, I think it's called the book Neil's Brain. So it's about the preparation of a surgery, and during and the book basically explains the story of the patient from the first diagnosis to the operation, and with a lot of interactions between the patient and the fictional group of doctors. And of course here it is important, okay, narrator, then of course hero, the patient, so we have that. Then we don't have magical objects, but we have like a topic, like, okay, the background of the hero is that the hero has to overcome the illness or the anxiety of the operation to really decide, okay, I will do it. I will do the operation or have the operation done on my brain, because that is a lot of anxiety. And the wise man, as we had previously, would be the doctor that explains what's going on, and going through the threshold would be really like the decision, and really going through the operation and what's coming out of it. And maybe at the end of the story the person looks back, okay, the person is a changed man, he is no longer like, or has less anxiety, or wants to live live his life more, a lot more, and make different life decisions. So you can add a story to that, but it is very seldom done. So you have to think about, okay, who's your target audience, and if it's really works out. So maybe do it as an exercise. Really, if you write a non-fiction book, okay, can you really use this one maybe as an interaction between a scientist or an expert and a layman. Okay, what else do we have here? We have here space. Well, that's just, okay, all the assets you have, like pictures or ideas or so, just put in there. Concept and theme, what's the general idea? So again, it's more a box where you put it. Mood board, that's basically, okay, some pictures or some maybe movie screen caps, really, okay, I want it to be like this, or I want it to be like that. And here's some ideas for subplots. So the blue cards are mostly like organizing your ideas. Maybe that is the first step if you already have like a box of ideas. Again, best approach is not just, okay, I'll write my own story, but to really examine maybe if you have already an idea for that, for your story. Look at 5 or 10 or maybe 20, 100 similar movies, books, and think about how they do it. And also think about, okay, what's your unique selling point? How is your story different than those other 5 stories? What's your take on it? Do you have a special theme, special time period you're looking at, a special background of your heroes, a special bond between the hero and his or her comrades, and what does your story do different than others? That is really the room for creativity. So by examining and reviewing other books using that schema, you will really find out, okay, here is in that part is mine. Okay, let's look at those. This one. These are the reader steps. So that is basically the third part you're doing. Which this goes here. Wait, I have to move it up. Zip. Okay. So. Again, this is similar to what I already told about the hero steps. So this looks again at the completed story. So you basically start with the assets, organize your ideas. You think about, okay, what is the hero's story? So I mean, by default, they use Joseph Campbell, but maybe there are different ones. So that is, I think there are some expansion packs, but I have to look at it on the website. So maybe there's a different type of suspense here you're using, and then as a third step, okay, you're editing everything together, and you have that what I already told, the reader steps, and you have the setup, so how's the original world, the catalyst, so what is the really the change, the major point where the hero is thrown out of their ordinary life, the rising action, the act 2, that is new characters, enemies, trials, and the midpoint where they maybe reflect after their first trials and learn, and then really the actual crisis. So maybe they discover something, they have some trials, learn something, and then the actual crisis, that was the where the previous one changes, or where they discovered something that was just a prelude for the actual crisis. And then of course you have the the climax, the solution, and the epilogue. What's coming out of it. So that is the whole deck, and that is how it is done with Fabulous deck. So in the comments, please add how you approach it. Maybe there are different decks, and maybe tell how you approach new stories. And one thing about this, so I think by the time we won't do an example one, but I think for next time we will take those cards again and do an example and use a few example books or example movies and go through that and simply show, okay, how would an example look like of this particular book, of this particular movie, and see if it follows that formula. That would be a topic for next time. For in 2 weeks, I will show you a similar approach, but for game development actually. So we had like non-fiction books, we have now fiction books, and also I will show you the process how to actually create a game, a card game. That is because it is my current project, and I just show you this design steps there. It is a lot of storytelling involved, and the challenge really is to adapt the rules. I mean, how the world works to the theme to really get that integrated. I mean, it is similar with storytelling alone, because you also have to define the world and how the rules work in that regard. Thank you for watching. Add your comments. What do you think about those cards? I will post the link also in the comments. Again, I'm not sponsored by it. It's just a thing you can just use also my video and just use stickers and put them on the wall and just write on them, okay, hero and magical object, world, etc., and organize your way there. Last time we looked at it from a different point, from design thinking view. Now we looked at from the primarily the hero steps, and those different views really help you to reflect on your ideas and really carve out what's going on. Next time, next time we will really delve into how to really analyze your competition or other books, and really to find this way your own market niche, and find, okay, what's already been done and what's not done. And in 2 weeks we will do the same, but with basically game development. For example, a card game or a dice game. I will look at game development. In this regard, thank you for watching, and see you next week.